Hi, folks, and welcome to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a gratuitous amount of optimism. I am your co-host, Seth Boyd,
I am Megan Tierney.
and joining us once again is former guest, and all-time friend
You could be a
Aaron
host.
Mccray-Goldsmith. Yes, that's the goal, I think, eventually.
I think so.
Aaron, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, calling in from beautiful downtown Oakland. Excited to talk about Saltburn. It's a heck of a time.
It
Mhm.
is, yeah, and full disclosure, folks, this is not the first time it's happened, but we recorded this episode and got lost. We
Mhm.
blame you, Zoom. So give us money. I don't know. See if that works as a threat. But I'm glad that we actually kind of had some time to think about it because when we first did it, I had, I think, seen it the night before, and I didn't
Mhm.
rewatch it, but I've just been thinking about it a lot more, and I have more to say this time. So I'm excited to talk about it. But this is a very fun time at the movies. It's a unique movie for sure. Megan, this was on your will be out by now, your top watch list of last year.
This
So
was.
mm,
This was
so I
number
was the
two.
one late to this party. This was number two, right? I was the latest to this party. And something I think you guys mentioned before we get too much into this movie is that the um, ads for this movie kind of were somewhat misleading or did not really set you up for maybe what the movie is. Do you mind addressing
Mm.
that? Because I also still have not seen a trailer for it, but I just knew this movie as a movie going viral.
Mm.
It's funny. I actually just saw another like round of advertisements going out for it, at least on YouTube.
Mm.
So
Oh,
they're pushing
interesting.
it again. Yeah, I know when we first recorded it, I mean it was like right after the big social media
Yeah.
storm, everyone posting
Right.
their their shocked or quote unquote shocked reactions to the film.
Right.
Um,
I saw like one ad, I'm pretty sure,
Okay.
but from the ad I remember thinking that it should be on my watch list basically. I mean, it's also a
Sure.
24-esque even in the
Right.
ad from what I remember. I can't really remember the ad that much to be honest, but it just made me intrigued. But in terms of the virality of it, I was really surprised for the reasons
Yeah.
it went viral. And it was some cheap shots, maybe, possibly, because I think that the movie has a little bit more going on for it than just being kind of like than the things that I saw go viral, basically.
Sure.
So that was kind of an interesting phenomenon. I'm glad that I didn't see the virality aspect of it until after watching it.
Okay. Because
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna one of us will summarize the movie here in a moment, but like it definitely went viral for weird sex scenes, some kind of odd killings, among other things, and some just kind of things like that. And I think my initial reaction was like, "Oh, this is maybe overblown," and not really though, because it's like I was actually really hard pressed on thinking about it since our first record. Like, what was the last American movie or English language movie that was this popular, that was this weird with sexuality and with nudity and with things like that? And sure, I can think of foreign films, think of older movies, but no, I think this is actually great that we had this and it's a blast and everyone's talking about it. And I think, and this is the second film from Emerald Fennell, the director. So I think this is a still very young filmmaker. There's a lot more to do. So I'm a lot more excited about this movie now, as like I think we're gonna get weirder shit because of this, and it was just a good time in the movie. Um, Aaron, would you mind kind of doing us the honors of what is this movie, summarizing, so we can kind of dig into the meat on the bones?
yeah, sure. The film follows Oliver Quick. He's a young man finding his way in the world. Makes a very rich friend. Spends a summer in this beautiful estate. And then the movie quickly devolves into this wonderful, fun romp with yeah, a lot of sex, a lot of intersections of like class and politics,
Yeah,
and a bunch of murder and sort of like a kind of an anime ending. Not gonna lie, like I mean, they really just sent it at the very end.
Oh.
But
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's I kind of joked about it being the hero's journey, but I mean, it's like it's a weird mix of like coming of age story and like finding your place in the world and in class and in society and I don't know, maybe I mean I'm still very sympathetic to Oliver, so
Mhm.
yeah.
it's really all about him.
I think And before I say anything, Megan, this was on your watch list as well. I mean, this was on your faved watch list that you had. Um, why don't you talk about a little before I dive in, if you don't mind, kind of like things that really stood out to you, kind of more grand scale of enjoying this movie.
Sure. I think in retrospect, I would not have put it at number 2. I don't know why I was so jazzed then. I also saw like other movies that I think I mentioned that I saw The Holdovers, and that was
Sure.
a little bit more like up my alley, and what I really like in film, and like the way that it leaves you feeling is that like warm and fuzzy feeling, and this
Sure.
is kind of like the opposite of that, and it should be like a watch alone at nighttime kind of thing, and don't and then you just contemplate life a little bit and be like, how does my life compare to this this weird, very bizarre movie? But I think that for me, I also like fully noted that to me the movie was a lot about the aesthetics, and it was very very A24 coded, and for me it was like cream of the crop A24 visuals and like imagery, and even kind of thematic as well. I think that maybe previously A24 was a little bit more self-serious. And so actually it's kind of nice to see, like Aaron mentioned, that this is very much a romp, and it has a lot of like murder twisty elements, but it's not it's if you were to follow them very strategically and very like logically, it doesn't, of course it doesn't work, but I didn't need it to work in that regard. Like it was very fun to just kind of see it unfold in that way. So
Yeah.
I liked it for that. I think that it was a nice kind of pivot almost for A24, and I think it got into a little bit of like class parody as well because of how absurd the classism that was going on.
Most definitely.
So
Right.
I love that. I was all about that. So I think that's where it like
Yeah.
really shines.
That's a great point with the self seriousness, because like even A24 has a few comedies that are still kind
Yeah.
of more dramedies. They're still kind of somber,
Mm.
but like they do definitely have the self serious movies, and Barry Keoghan's been in a couple of them, like The
Yeah.
Green Knight, which I enjoyed, but there's not
All right.
a lot
I
of
forgot he was in The Green Knight.
yeah. He's a pivotal part in that. So I think this movie is a much lighter, especially when still having the violence that we expect in a A24 movie.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, there's really 2 stars of this movie. There's Barry Keoghan and there's 2006, because this movie takes place in 2006, and this was such a nostalgia. Obviously, we were not in England at the time,
Mm.
but I was definitely hit hard with the soundtrack and like the minor details, like the tiny but clunky flat screen TV
Mm-hmm.
and all the things like that just were taking me back. And I forgot about that time where the richest people you knew so had a fucking awful TV. That was the latest. It was a bad time for TVs,
Yeah.
and they're having it in this like beautiful old library.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Aaron, where you're the guest here, is there a kind of a spot you want to jump in?
Oh, I'm just glad this movie saved Mr. Brightside from the killers for me, because the last time
Yeah.
I looked at it, I was going through my worst 14-year-old breakup of all time.
Ah, yeah.
But
Well,
I don't know,
you
I
were
mean,
seen.
I don't know if I was seen. I'm just glad
You
that
were
Mr.
14
Brightside.
the last time you heard it, because you went quite a gap in
Oh
avoiding
God,
that.
no,
So
that was, oh Lord, that was, I think that was junior year of high school. Yeah, it was like 15, 16.
okay,
So yeah.
That was a good time for it.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that
that
was
song, yeah,
no, they did a fantastic job with like the set and the setting. They
yeah.
absolutely nailed it. I think one thing that's coming up for me, I have a feeling that like the male and female perspective of this movie is very different. Like
Mm.
it's a weird parallel I'm about to draw, but I kind of feel like this is like Gone Girl, but for boys. Uh, in a
Yeah,
in
I
a,
think that's a
in
good.
a strange way. It's like a, Gone
Yeah,
Girl is like a good for her kind of story. I'm saying
sure.
good for Oliver. Good for Oliver.
Yeah,
That's
I like
my
not
side
just
of it.
good for him, because that has different
Yeah.
implications,
Mm.
but good for all specifically. I think one of the parallels with that, Aaron, is weaponized sexuality in a weird way.
Mm.
Oliver is a very sexual person and sleeps with several members of the family in strange ways. Um,
I think all but
we'll
one.
probably just, yeah, all but one.
The dad?
Damn, I was really was really wanting that scene with him and Richard E. Grant. I am not joking.
Yeah.
I really wanted it.
I know.
Yeah, that's gonna be the sequel.
Yeah, hopefully, like he's actually still alive. And
Mm.
but yeah. So the bottom line here is that there's several sexual scenes with him being very manipulative, and all of the sexuality is not is it's kind of involving getting the other person off primarily,
Mhm.
and or voyeurism. And so there is kind of that in Gone Girl too, if she's very willing to sleep with people to kind of change their mind, to
Mm.
some cases incriminate, or it is a tool for her in variety of ways in that movie. And we haven't really seen a male story of that the sex is kind of like that, this isn't him banging everybody and getting high fives from the bros bragging about it. This is also kind of under
Mhm.
covertly
Mm-hmm.
sneaking into the garden or sneaking into someone's room at night.
Mhm.
So I think it does have that aspect, and also just the cunning of, oh, he was planning this the whole time,
Mhm.
aspect of it. So Gone Girls for Boys, I think definitely makes sense for this.
Thank you for saving my metaphor. I've been
Yeah,
thinking
no,
about
I
that.
liked it. I think it really works. Kind of plot wise, we should maybe flesh it out a little bit more here. Is like Oliver is very much kind of fish out of water. He's the scholarship kid in Oxford, and becomes clear very quickly he is easily the poorest man in all of Oxford University,
Mhm.
or at least one of them. And I think that this is kind of the first class thing we get. How did the class stuff work for you, both of you?
I think the setup was literally fantastic. Like, I think
Mm,
actually, it's probably the reason that I totally agree that this is a hero's journey in favor of
yeah,
Barry's character, because I mean, even even post killing, you're kind of still along for the ride. But and post and it makes the twist all that more like delicious, I guess. I really liked and I personally wasn't expecting it. I don't it was very effective in my eyes, but the setup um especially around a snooty school, like, is just very it kind of sets up like a classic fairy tale motif almost, and to have it like really really twisted and gutted on its head is nice. And even like that it's so collegiate, and that it's like 2006, and I think there's a lot of like nostalgia factor going on, where
true.
you kind of think about college life at that era, and it feels like it plays to that a lot. But then I love that I really love that the twist, and think that it does it very well, and but sets him up extremely well. And I think that his acting is like a big testament as to why I think Barry was really, really captivating in this. Even more so than Jacob Elordi. I think Jacob Elordi's character was very like straight, obviously,
Mm,
straight man compared to him.
yeah,
And he navigated a lot of those turns, I think, beautifully. Like, I really, really appreciated his acting in this.
No, I mean, I think he navigated like college and early adult life in maybe a way that like a lot of us dream of being able to do. It's like,
that's yeah,
pick your friends, find the rich ones, have a impressive jump up in your social and your everything else status. And I mean, I think maybe that's just like why it was so easy to root for Oliver, right? I mean,
Mhm.
at least in the beginning of the story, it's like, well, he's just, it kind of seems like he's bumbling his way into
Mhm.
not the most comfortable situation for sure, but a situation that sort of gets him out of his maybe introverted and sort of normal rut into something magical. I mean, I like to use the term fairy tale, right? I mean, it kind of,
College, I guess.
I mean, definitely in the beginning. I mean, it is kind of that like fairy tale sort of quasi Cinderella,
Yeah.
finding
sure.
your handsome prince. And um I think that's like, I mean, a lot of people, I know my experience with the Mr. Brightside scene when they go and visit Oliver's
Yeah,
family is like,
Mhm.
I just felt fucking awful for him. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
yeah, he's a fucking liar. Yeah, he's a sociopath, but like, I mean, it's like the prince going and visiting Cinderella's home. It's like, no, of course you don't want that to happen. Of course,
right.
Um,
Mm.
so I mean, I think it's, yeah, it's interesting that that's complicated by him just being kind of a middle of the road guy. You know, it's like that's the dissonance is he's getting so much, but you know, he had to lie about just being kind of normal, you know? Kind of
I think it also he's smart and he plays into what the rich people assume someone poor enough to be there on scholarship is. You know, when we see his house, it's a normal house. He has, you know, it's, sorry for saying normal. It is a sizable house in England. You know, he has parents. He lies and says that his parents are both depraved drug and alcohol addicts. That one of them has died. That's not the case. There's photos of the whole family vacations in Greece. You know, so like he's middle class. You know, but middle class is so far below what everyone else in the movie knows that it is kind of inconceivable. And
That's true.
I think he knows that. And I think it's like, all right, you think I'm from the gutter. I'm going to say I'm from the gutter is maybe where it starts. But to your point of that scene, Aaron, like there's so many moments in this movie where Oliver is the most pathetic character you've ever seen on screen. And in most cases, it kind of ends up being calculated. This is, I think, the one instance where seeing it like this is not something he wanted to have happened. You know, this is he's often, you know, even like there was a scene right before he commits the murder, he's being very pathetic, kind of begging for attention. But this is the scene that is, you're there with him. You're a little confused, but I didn't really feel like I pointed him. You know, it's like there didn't need to be a dark secret of it looks nice, but they actually beat him or something. You know, we never get any more details about his family other than that he lied about them.
I like that it's like opposite extremes too, because he's saying he's the poorest of the poor, and then he goes to the family that's literally, I mean, insanely crazy rich with rich optics and all of that. And it's funny that I think it would be kind of like, or it's funny that he doesn't want to express that he's middle class because, or like normal, as we say, quote unquote normal, because I think that's like what people strive for now. So I think it may be like a time thing too, or like just obviously to enhance the movie as well. Yeah. So it's I like that he's trying to go for the extreme ends of the spectrum, but he's got it like fine, you know, middle class wise. And I think it's kind of like it relates to voyeurism too, maybe, or just his extreme nature in itself. Like I think that it kind of like is about it amplifies his character because it's like, well, you got a nice life, dude. Like, why? What's wrong with you? Why are you so like strange like that? So I like that. I think it thickens his plot too, which I really like.
Because like we have this scene where like there's like the scene where he's being embarrassed. What is the guy who's always fucking with him that he meets in the like literally first scene in the movie? He's stuck in class with someone who ends up being the cousin.
Hold up, I know exactly.
Farley.
Farley.
He's a good actor too.
Yeah, the actor's great, Farley, and this is where we get some of the race issues as well. He's African American, and his mother went there, and he's a descendant of the wealthy clan of the Caddens.
Was he a foil? Is that the term for his character? Like, because he was
he's kind of a foil for Barry.
He was kind of like this. Wasn't like a devil on the shoulder, but he was certainly
he was a problem.
Yeah, a problem, but
because like
a problem that understands him better than almost anyone else.
Right, because like I think that's very true because like you have the first time he's kind of welcomed and he's hanging out at the pub with them. Farley's like, okay, it's your turn to buy the round. What are you gonna do? You know, and is like, I'm not being rude. We've all been taking turns. He's had 5 drinks bought for him. Frankly, that's fair, you know, but puts him on the spot. And then we see later, you know, he's pretending he doesn't have money so that Jacob Elordi comes over there and covers it. We see later in the movie he did have money. He was just kind of fucking around, waiting for that to happen. Which got me thinking about like how many other things was he lying about? Like I think he purposely got an ill-fitting tux that looked like it was rented from Oxfam or borrowed from there, rather than like getting one that fit for his graduation. I feel like there's several things he just kind of leaned into, and it particularly pissed. And Farley's the one who comments on it the most.
I mean, I think they were kind of ambiguous about that part too, of like
Yeah.
what was Oliver in control of and what was he wasn't. Because
Yeah.
like I don't know, especially during like the whole social media craze around the movie, there was a lot of talk about have you seen any of the discussions of like the quote unquote egg scene? It's towards the end of the movie. Oliver
Oh, like the bread.
orders
Yes,
eggs
yes, where he sends back his
Oh,
eggs.
tied up and then gets served poached eggs with runny insides and then he returns them. I don't know. A lot of people like really read into that scene. I thought he was just fucking with Butler, honestly. Um,
Yeah,
but I mean,
I think he was testing his limits too of how the parents who he's
yeah.
playing along with will
yeah,
react to him sending it back. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because in that moment too,
One
like
of them,
Farley and
yeah.
the daughter are like, "What the fuck are we ignoring this for?" And he's just making conversation with them.
I mean, I think that's kind of the most ambiguous part of the plot for me. I mean, I think it's fine because it's
Yeah,
Oliver is a Machiavellian character in a lot of ways, and it's fine if we just assume he was in control of all of it. I mean, I think if I wanted this to be a more deep movie, I think I would have wanted them to go more into that, but that wasn't
Yeah.
that wasn't the thing that we were all really showing up for. That's not that wasn't the most entertaining part. So
right.
I'm happy to let that lie.
It's not a perfect crime movie. Like if you're into that, or like a really, really well thought out thriller. It's not that, but it doesn't have to be that. It's good
It is
in
a
like
movie where Barry Keoghan fucks a grave, and that's
Yeah.
that's not in most crime movies. So
I
you
think,
know, you
I
gotta
think what
choose
it what it really signals
it's
to us
atmospheric.
choose your
is full frontal male nudity really just improves any plot. Like that's really what it's telling us.
right. Show dong more often, right?
Yeah,
I think
same thing
that's
in
the real.
National Lampoon. I mean, it was full of plot holes, but you know what? We were there for the full frontal male nudity, so
Exactly.
um,
Bring it back.
it solves all things.
It's
I mean,
aesthetic, I
It's
think.
the aesthetic.
this does bring up something. We should maybe describe. I think let's just describe the weird sex scenes. Um,
Do
All of
we
them.
have
Aaron,
to?
Aaron, why don't you take your favorite, and then
Oh
Oh
God.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's a
Okay. What
question
is
I'm going
my
to ask you
favorite?
after this.
I don't know. In terms of my favorite, I don't know. I think honestly, the most intimate sex scenes to me, it was the voyeurism scenes. Like hands down. I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
the other sex scene, it's like cool. It's like it's going to shock a lot of audiences. It's
Right.
sort of wild and out there. But I think like really the most intimate ones were like just Oliver watching Felix fuck people. Like that was.
Sure.
I think that really like. I mean, in terms of things that like developed characters, in terms of things that like told you a little bit about Oliver, sort of started revealing his story. I really like those, and I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole like the is Oliver pathetic or is he weaponizing his patheticness? Because I think in those scenes, especially, that's when it was the most ambiguous. It's like, is Oliver doing this for himself? Is he doing this to find out more about Felix? I don't know. I thought those were actually the most complex, and probably the ones I've tried to like unpack the most. Not saying I unpacked them at all, but um, and those are
Right.
ones that like I could dive deeper into. Yeah, it was the voyeurism scenes because there's definitely a few too. I wish I had a better recollection of like where they showed up in the plot, but I think there's definitely some deeper
There's
meaning.
a few at Oxford.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Oh yeah.
several at Oxford, like multiple parties.
yeah,
And I think a telling thing is like one of these kind of involves him like kind of leaving a party and um, he's got a bottle and he approaches a girl who's definitely into and is definitely obsessed with Felix and he's like, hey, it works. Like they're going to hook up. And she says, do you think he notices I'm here? And he's like, no.
Oh yeah.
And then she leaves. And
Yeah.
I think it seems, at the moment, like, was he just saying the wrong thing and is just pissed off? I don't really know because he doesn't seem that interested in sex with anybody other than Felix.
yeah.
And like he's willing to do it, but then in terms of what he actually wants, that's all Felix.
That's true.
And so I'm going to describe the other scenes. We also have him drinking the bath water after Felix has masturbated in the bath.
Classic.
Felix doesn't know this.
Mm-hmm.
We have some strange handjob scenes. We have menstruation scenes. what I'm getting at is
I
like some
think
of the most
I think they would
controversial
call
scenes
them
we have
they would
here.
call them old fashions at the
Yeah, there you go. Old fashions is like those. So the more
European.
controversial scenes, yeah, and then we have the grave at the end. He literally
Yes.
just strips down naked and fucks the grave,
Mhm.
which Aaron, I think you told us
Felix
was
is
improvised.
great.
Yeah,
Felix's grave,
no,
sorry.
that part was improvised. I think like everything beyond taking his shirt off was improvised. So
Incredible. So what I mean, we love that. But like those scenes did not feel erotic in the same way that the voyeurism scenes feel.
Mm.
And I think that kind of goes to what you were saying, Aaron. I think that's when we're learning the most about the character. That's like those are the most interesting scenes because they are the ambiguous of well, what is he actually what's going on with him? Is he pathetic or is he calculating?
yeah.
Like because I think the movie plot is more interesting than those scenes. And that's just me. I was gonna ask you guys, do you find those other scenes erotic? I'm not being a prude about them. To me, they were more about shock factor, and that's not necessarily bad.
Well, I think it's interesting because voyeurism itself is like a hidden act. Like there's an element of hiding,
Sure.
and then as his like psychopathic, give or take tendencies come out with his other sex scenes, that's where his like we see an immediate personality shift. That in
Mhm.
fact, like the first
Right.
one that I forget which one it was. I think he was with the cousin or something in the graveyard, or not the graveyard. I have the graveyard scene on my mind, but in the garden
Pardon.
at night. When we see him like immediately change, immediately take over, and it's like
Right.
very out of left field for his character up until this point. So it was I don't know, it's just kind of like an interesting shift, and I think it was done to show his to build again, just build more of his character and
Yeah.
like see the
Yeah.
twists come to
That's a good
light.
point. It's not fair to say we're not learning about the character because we do learn quite a bit about him. I think that's a good point. So I'm not really sure. I think though they were the way they're shot or something about them just to me felt more about shock than
Mhm.
eroticism.
I mean,
And
even
that's fun. This
Thriller,
is a fun, shocking movie. This is a thriller,
right?
and like part of, like you said, Aaron, the romp of this is the shock of these scenes, especially
Yeah.
if you don't know they're coming, if you haven't seen them before. And these are the scenes that kind of made the movie go viral. Like Lush has a bath bomb that is the scent of the bath water that you can buy. I sent you that on the Instagram chat. Check it out. It's nasty.
I didn't like that, sadly. I didn't need to see that.
Yeah.
Please send in more Lush bath bombs.
Yeah.
I think the tagline is like "drink it up," and I was like,
No.
"No!"
Yeah.
Lord.
Or like "lap it up,"
Now
and
you
I was
know
like,
we're
"Lush,
surviving that
who's
social someone,
behind their
Aaron.
marketing?"
Man, bathwater's really having a moment in the 2020s, that's for sure.
Yeah. Sounded like an onion joke. It is not. That's a real
Did y'all
product.
have y'all put out your favorite sex scenes yet? We need to. I know we have to hear from Seth and Megan on their particular favorite scenes.
I do like the grave. I like
Me too.
I mean, I think part of it is just like the acting he was going for it is great.
I
What's
think
that?
it's like I was gonna say. I thought that one was almost the most intimate, or like certainly pitiful, because
Yeah,
he's like crying in it also,
that's the
and
closest he comes to it. Yeah, that's
exactly,
because like
and his
that is the
prize.
person he's obsessed with. Because I think that's the other thing is like there are several moments in this movie, and even when thinking about this movie afterwards, where I'll have the thought of like, oh, I think he was just I didn't think he actually was into Felix. He just was after the money. But then these scenes are so extreme, of the voyeurism and of the grave and everything. These are extreme things to do for someone you're not obsessed with.
Maybe
I don't.
even in the
This is not a thing you do
marketing.
because you're bored.
Maybe even in the marketing, it reminded me, it's also A24, it reminded me of Call Me By Your Name, and this is like the
Sure.
sickest, like sicko version of Call Me By Your Name that nobody was
Sure.
expecting. Because to me, Call Me By Your Name's gorgeous, beautiful. Like
Right.
it was a great love story. And this one, I could not say the same. But
I think that's a fair point because I think until I saw Call Me by Your Name, which I watched on your recommendation, and you're right, man, it's a great movie. I just knew Peach Saint. That's kind of all I knew about it.
Yeah.
It was viral for that, and frankly, didn't disappoint. But
that's right.
But it's also a beautiful movie beyond just the nasty scene it's viral for.
Yeah.
Aaron, did you say yours already?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was the voyeurism guy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, okay, so here's my thing about the grave scene. So the thing about the grave scene for me is this, like, think it brings into question like what is Oliver really after, right? Because I mean, you know, he has the monologue of like, you know, I hated him, but I loved him. But so I'm personally, I'm under the impression that he was after the house. He's not after the
Okay.
money. He's not. Yeah,
Actually,
he's
not even
after
the money.
Jacob, but really, the thing he is after the
Mhm.
house. You know,
Okay.
I think that's where it's sort of like the dance ending really comes in because it's like it's his space, right? I mean, I think they could have ended it in a lot of ways, but sort of him being as free as possible in this gorgeous space, maybe that's what it all was really about. 'Cause, you know, I mean, he's still pursuing it 10 years after Jacob's untimely demise.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe that's one of the big questions I have in the film. It's just like what was Oliver actually really after?
Mhm.
But I think it's the house. I really think it's the house. Not gonna lie.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much of a time jump we have here. It jumps to 2022. I
Yeah,
forgot that.
modern day.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. This is the goal because that is the thing that's haunting him. That's the thing he's very excited to go back to.
Yeah.
And I think one of the kind of like moments that is calculating, but also he's maybe serious about is when he sees Rosemund Pike years later, who is fantastic in this.
Mhm.
He asks about one of the butlers by name. You know, he says, how are they doing?"
Mhm.
And I think that he has kind of a patheticness and like an earnestness of like genuinely missing the place that I think she immediately recognizes as well. You know, it was like an intimate question rather than just like, "Are you still rich?" You know, it was, "How's this thing from a place you know, I have fond memories." So
Mhm.
I think you might be right, Aaron, that it was more about the location, about getting the manor than the actual money or about him. Let's talk about his strategy because obviously things go off the rails when he's discovered by Felix.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What did you think his plan was going to go? Should that not have happened? You know, or do you have any theories on that, or and how well do you think it was going before?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, what have we done otherwise?
Because he was focusing on the matriarch, right? He's focusing on
Yeah.
Rosemund Pike. Seemed to be where he was
Yeah.
putting all his eggs in the basket, making sure she was on his side, and by the end, she was.
Mhm.
Well, no, and I mean, he was just trying to fit in with the family and fit in with their life and
Yeah,
you know, be around as much as possible.
yeah,
Yeah, like a couple months living with them. That's no joke. That's like
right.
serious integration into the family unit. As
Well,
weird as that
especially
is.
yeah, because we have so many repeated threats of this not lasting. You know, like everyone's talking about the friends he brought last summer and how they
Yeah,
were
yeah,
kidnapped
Mhm.
after a few weeks or something. And we see this isn't specific to the kids. We see his parents, Felix's parents, Richard E. Grant and Rosamund Pike, kick out one of their friends who's up here, who
Mhm.
dies shortly after in I think an abusive relationship as the result of that. So someone who's kind of hiding out there who they're just kind of bored with. So the idea of failing in a variety of ways of either not picking up on a social cue or just being too boring is a very real threat, or just trying too hard. You know, trying to take more than is offered.
Mhm.
Because I love part of his plan is just kind of getting to know them, like looking up,
Yeah.
yeah.
learning more about one of the artists they have, and be like, "Oh my god, is that?" Like knowing that it is, and then their eyes light up, like, "Yes, you know it." They're so excited. Like Farley's not talking about the art they have; he doesn't give a
Oh.
shit. You know, their
Mhm.
own kids don't give a shit.
It was really smart because they were just it's really smart that they're portrayed as so insanely either ignorant, ignorant and
Yeah,
like willing to keep up polite pleasantries to
sure.
keep this image of high society. That was like hilarious. That was very literally laugh out loud funny
Yeah,
to see all of that go down. But and to I mean, you're kind of seeing I think by the end of the movie, you do see in retrospect how not Oliver, yeah, Oliver, how Oliver has
mhm,
transcended all of that, used all of that to his advantage, like 100%. And to me, that's like probably the best aspects of it. I think it is. I think it is really interesting to think about like alternatives because it feels
sure.
in some way it's like almost perfectly connected somehow, but
Yeah.
as it kind of progresses, like there's just no other it really does like kind of unfold in front of you as it kind of goes on. So that's really interesting to me too. I really don't see an alternative. It's that I think that's kind of where people might have like issues with it, to be like, well, it was just, it wasn't thought out. But I think it's like
Sure.
fun and characteristic too of Oliver to think
Oh,
that
yeah,
he was just kind of like making shit up as he goes along, which is what I think was very much happening.
I think that's true. And we also, stepping back here, forgot we have kind of the classic high school movie thing of his
Mhm.
party being ruined. It's the big birthday party for him. That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
when that is the same day, right, as the Mr. Brightside scene of being discovered.
Yes.
And it's like should be the big climax by Sweet 16, basically here of
Mhm.
his new rich family giving him whatever he wants into this massive. What was the theme of it again? It's not Midsummer Night's Dream. It's
I think it was.
It was Midsummer
Midsummer's
Night's
Night's
Dream.
Mhm.
Dream. Yeah. Okay.
No, I'm still
Oh, other.
kicking myself for not getting one of those like elk antler
Uh-huh.
headpieces. I'm sure there was some symbolism in that. I have no
I
clue
know.
what that symbolism is. Not a big Shakespeare fan, for better or for worse. Great thing for a party, though. I mean, definitely gotta try and pull it off.
Mhm.
Point.
Yeah. No, you should. That'd be a good theme for one of your dinner parties. And I think the horns in general often go to cuckolding. That is often what it's kind of in Shakespeare, like to wear the horns is kind of a phrase from that era. So there's a little bit of that with the kind of threat of he's at this point slept with several people. Is he going to sleep with the mom? He presumably does later, in the flash forward. But
Mhm.
so that's my initial thought is there's a few phrases where that comes from, or that's referenced in Shakespeare. But it's an incredible, lavish party that again goes back to this being a very fun movie to watch. It's like this is a pretty long party sequence, but it's a blast. It's crazy. It's chaotic.
Oh, yeah.
It's very lavish. You want to
It
be at that party.
absolutely relaunched like the most poppy 2006 electro song as well.
Mhm.
I was unironically listening to that Exceeder song. It's been on my playlist for like 6 months before that movie came out. So yeah,
Is this
absolutely.
Murder on the Dance Floor?
No, it's
Okay,
it's Perfect by Exceeder. It's one of the mixes of that song. Yeah, glad that one's back in everyone's repertoire, at least for another year or two.
No, the soundtrack was perfect, I thought, and
Mhm.
definitely songs have been rising in charts again on Spotify and elsewhere
Oh,
because
yeah.
of this movie. And I think again because this movie's out on home video, and actually it's gonna be back in some theaters. So like the theater across the street from me is gonna be playing it in a couple of weeks. So
Wow.
this would be a fun one to see in theaters. I kind of regret not seeing it.
I mean, was it released in theaters originally? Because I mean, I think it was just.
Yes.
It was, yeah.
Oh, huh.
Mhm.
No idea.
I was
Limited,
told by
but yeah.
a dear friend to watch this in theaters and before I had seen it, and I don't know about that now, but I'm very much like I'm glad
You
that
have the right
this came
friends,
to
yeah.
Prime.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
such a good movie to watch with friends. You absolutely learn a lot about them.
That's true.
It's amazing. Definitely one of those movies where you just look
Yeah.
to the side, you get to learn a lot about people.
Right.
Mhm.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There's a big trend on TikTok about watching Saltburn with your parents. So
Oof.
No.
No, that I would not do. Yeah.
Well, that's
um,
for the children
Yeah.
of TikTok
Right.
that made that mistake, probably. Oh man,
Yeah.
that'll be rough.
I think I've shared on this podcast some of my favorite movie going experiences are seeing David Lynch movies in theaters whenever that happens because
Mm.
people's reactions are so mixed to what's happening.
yeah.
And I think this movie
Oh,
would be kind of similar in that like some people will be grossed out while others are laughing,
Yeah.
and it's
yeah.
very fun to have that in a wave,
Yes,
if you can see that for a lot of people.
that's true.
So I understand your hesitation, Megan, but I will endorse seeing this in theaters
That is true.
with no one you know or with your best friend.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
I'll endorse recommending it to your parents and seeing what happens.
Some parents, that's fine,
Um,
but others that may
That's true.
be family trauma.
My mother-in-law recently asked Anna and I if we saw it because she liked it. So
Oh
I actually have a review from my mom. She
Uh.
just said disturbing,
no.
but not necessarily in a bad way.
okay. There
I
you go. That's
love
art.
that.
That's art,
Solid
baby.
3 stars, solid 3 stars.
That's a great summarization
Oh, yeah,
of
yeah.
all of it.
Now, Megan,
Mhm.
we last talked There Will Be Blood, and you did say your dad would like this movie. Are you gonna recommend Saltburn to your dad?
This is the antithesis of a Bob Tierney movie, I'll say.
Okay.
I think his eyes would
That should be like a
explode.
section on our website. Bob approved or not Bob approved.
Yes, I'll do an article or something.
I would like that.
He has his taste. He has his taste.
Sure.
Good old Bob Tierney. Shout out.
I had another question I was going to ask you folks, but while I'm thinking of it, any other kind of thoughts we want to make sure we get to while we're discussing this?
I think in like rethinking about it, something that I noted, which I like that we were talking a lot, that this is very like the 2006 aspect is kind of a big part of it, but
Sure.
also that and like Call Me by Your Name, it reminds me a little bit too that this is a lot of like homoeroticism going on here, and it's a
Sure.
little hard to believe that he didn't get any like homophobia like thrown at him basically. I guess
Sure.
it is
The
he is
character.
very like under the radar, yeah, Oliver specifically, and
Yeah.
even Felix too, because he kind of entertains it, I think, and is very like a
Yeah.
almost jock character. I guess I don't know if that's if that's an equivalent in England or anything like that, but my takeaway is that it was nice. Like it's kind of nice that it was a big absolute free for all, and it wasn't like a stop and pause moment of the movie. I think it just didn't even have time for that. Honestly, there was a lot going on. So I like the refreshing element that it's just like, literally whoever you be along for the ride, and if you're not, like, whatever. But it worked so much. I think it would have been such a different movie if it like did talk about those things. Not that those things like are not important to talk about, of course, but I just liked that it was
Right.
like, it was just nice. I think it helped move things along really nicely and was refreshing.
Well, I think it also makes the like tension between Oliver and Farley a little more interesting
Yeah.
because there's not been slurs, there's not been shouting or anything like that, but there
Mhm.
also wasn't really anything to indicate Farley would be attracted to Oliver, and
Yeah.
and they end up in he is, So I kind of liked I think it worked in that sense. But you're absolutely right, Megan. I like, in terms of true to the day, as a queer
Yeah.
man who remembers 2006, no,
Yeah.
but it was definitely, I think, all for this movie.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about like everyone in this movie. I mean, because frankly, Barry Keoghan is so good in this, and it's
It
such a
is.
great lead
Yeah.
performance from him. But really, everyone is great. This is my first time seeing Jacob Elordi. I thought he was fantastic in this. I thought he's very charming, while also like he's ignorant in a way that's interesting. Like this guy who has the power to do so many things and hurt so many people and doesn't seem fully aware of it. At times.
And it's
And
funny
therefore,
because
like, what is
my I mean, I think my and a lot of other people's introduction to Jacob Elordi was in Euphoria, and he's,
Mhm.
I mean,
sure.
I mean, in some ways, a kind of similar character. I mean, but he's
Mhm.
definitely not like nice in
Ah,
Euphoria. But it's weird because it's like,
sure.
I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole like just being sympathetic for Oliver, despite everything. Like, yeah, I was never really rooting for him, but he was, I mean, he's kind of a jock. He's definitely a rich kid, but he's not like a dick. He's
Mhm.
kind of a nice charming
Right.
guy, like trying to help people
Well,
out where he can.
especially compared to Farley. Yeah.
Yeah, most
Or his
definitely.
parents, because
Yeah.
he's not as stupid
Yeah.
as his parents, obviously.
Well, and I think because like these people do not work, and that's the plan. They're never going to work. And going back to what you said a while ago about like Farley being the foil, like he has going on exactly what Oliver wants, of being accepted by this family and just being able to basically just party and stay there and not do anything,
Yeah.
or maybe Oliver's more ambitious and wanting all of it himself, which he eventually gets. But he definitely sees Oliver as a interloper, but he's also this lazy little shit who's not doing anything, who does not really bring anything to the table. So Felix's interest is kind of to some degree running interference there, but also again, it's not like he's with his money wanting to go change the world or even work a job. So but I think he still manages to make his character charming, and it definitely believable. Like this is the guy who, beyond just being rich, is the most popular man on campus, or at least in this section of it that we're seeing it. I didn't really doubt that he wasn't who this movie says he is in that sense.
Didn't you guys mention that Timothée Chalamet was gonna play him? Like that was an alternate.
Oh, he was gonna play Oliver.
Oh, that's
yeah, I think he was
right.
gonna play Oliver.
Yeah,
Which honestly is such a shame. Would have been great. No, I think that would have fucking ruined it actually. But
I was gonna say, well, I mean, it would have been a very, very different movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Megan, because it makes sense on paper if you're doing this movie, you want Timothée Chalamet, but Barry Keoghan is so different, and so
Oh yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't really know how I feel about Timothée Chalamet. I think he's very good in Call Me by Your Name. I like him in Dune.
Yeah.
I have Wonka seems like a big misstep. Well, I liked him in Lady Bird too. Like I've liked him in movies, but I don't really know what his range is. I don't really feel like he's,
That's right.
I don't know if he's frankly as good as Barry Keoghan, from what I've seen.
Oh, not in. I don't think in this role at all. It would. That's what I'm saying. Like that's
sure, but I mean in general, like I don't know if he could pull off a role like this, and I honestly don't know. I'm not trying to slam him, but it is Timothée Chalamet's a face we're going to keep seeing a lot in the big box office movies, and I'd love for him to do something smaller again, and hopefully, and he probably will. But in the meantime, I'm also very happy to not see him in this movie. That became pretty big.
I think the other casting was also pretty fucking spot on too. I think Jacob Elordi nailed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, everyone seemed like very, very in place and like definitely lived into those characters well. I don't know what term there is for that, but no, I think they kind of nailed it.
No, it's great casting for sure.
Yeah.
And I think my favorite scene that you have the whole primary cast, and my favorite scene is the breakfast after Jacob Elordi's died.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we have the parents who very much want to act like nothing is happening, and then we have Farley and the sister we haven't talked about as much, just kind of crying and freaking out, Venetia, and being very pissed off that we're going through the motions here. And I love this scene because this is where it gets the craziest to me. Is Oliver is correct in making the right call by just talking about breakfast and talking about anything but, while we have two people screaming and crying and freaking out, and they are very much loving Oliver doing that. That's maybe at his most sociopathic, is playing into this, while two in the moment rational people are freaking out. That's maybe like the biggest like juxtaposition of what's going on in the movie happening at once, like the most bizarre balance of emotions happening all at once, and Oliver just figuring out which wavelength to ride with, and being able to do that was my favorite part of it.
Well, I think it like pointed to him being kind of like an expert navigator of the situation, right? It's like,
sure.
I mean, like especially with Felix, like he was like a young guy trying to navigate his place between like coming from super old money and like trying to have like a more sort of like diverse crowd that he hangs out with. Like you saw Felix's struggle with like trying to balance those two worlds and like sort of fit in with both. But yeah, with Oliver, I mean, he was just all in, like, oh, I can just navigate this perfectly, like I'll just switch like that. So no, I mean, I think those scenes, where it really shows Oliver as that expert navigator is really amazing. Really nailed it.
Well, then like the scene where he's it's just him and Rosemund Pike talking, and he kind of is pretty forward in telling her she's fucking beautiful, but also kind of listening to her problems, and is saying that in not a flirtatious way necessarily, but it's definitely being more forward than you would expect.
Yeah,
it's a gamble, and it's working. That's kind of the first kind of step towards getting close with her specifically, and it works, and he ultimately inherits everything. So I really like those scenes where we see him being calculating with a variety of people. I think that's very satisfying in terms of like the thriller, and like you said, Aaron, rooting for him, seeing him successfully pull this off in those scenes was fun to watch. All right, folks. Aaron, did we go over everything you want to, or any closing thoughts? Like your pitch to see Saltburn with or without your parents
in theaters?
Yeah, no.
Yes.
See Saltburn. It's amazing. If you're a big fan of, I mean, if you long for less Marvel and more National Lampoon,
sure.
this is your way of changing the trajectory of movies.
Nice.
Yeah, no, a fantastic time. Absolutely fantastic time.
Mhm.
Well said. Megan?
Nice. Yeah, I think Saltburn trended for the wrong reasons. So if you like, I don't know, I think give it a even give it a rewatch too. Like, if you're coming at it from the trend like scope, because
Sure.
it's just a lot more than that. And also like I'm really glad that A24 is picking weird shit basically and
Yeah,
getting weirder by the second. That's the best. And I
we all win.
like that it's about classism as well. Like I think the quasi parody going on is my favorite. Like some of my favorite scenes too, Seth, are with the parents, just that they're just so insane. So to hear even just hearing
Yeah.
these sentences come out of their mouth is like
Yeah.
so funny. So that was one of my favorite parts about it, and is well worth a watch in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah, it's a great watch. It's a fun time at the movies. Gather your parents. If your grandpa's still alive, bring them over. Don't tell them what you're going to put on. Actually do this on Super Bowl Sunday, and then just make it a fun one. Make it one everyone's
Church
going to
movie.
remember.
Yeah, there you go.
Serve eggs, and
Mhm.
no, but no, seriously, this was a fun time. I think if you were, I particularly challenge anybody who heard about this and thought it sounds too much for them, watch
Yeah.
this because it's probably not.
Mhm.
And if you like this, there's a whole nother world of like weirder scenes, weirder movies out there that if you can, enjoy, it's a deep well um, that I find very rewarding. With that, let's go to recommendations. Aaron, do you mind starting us off?
Mhm.
Oh Lord, I'm just gonna give you all more sci-fi recommendations.
Please, we want them.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, I've
Our
been
resident sci-fi.
yeah lately. So I guess at the time of recording, the fourth season of For All of Mankind has wrapped up. I think I recommend another
Nice.
Apple TV thing, but yeah, it's if you're into like the hard sci-fi where they actually, I mean, they don't do the math, but they're like doing real rocket science. And if you're into like Cold War politics and alternate space race timeline and
Mhm.
like thinking about going to Mars and how fucking hard that would be, absolutely wonderful show. Really, really, really wonderful show. I kind of can't fucking wait for the fifth season because they really they just do a great job with the cliffhangers. I mean, very much hard sci-fi, very much like science-driven plot as well as character-driven. Really great cast. Yeah, fantastic show For All Mankind.
Mhm.
Can't
All
recommend
right. Fantastic. Excited to check that out. There's never enough sci-fi, so I
Mhm.
appreciate you highlighting that one for us, Aaron. Megan.
Sure. I basically gave myself away already because I wanted to recommend The Holdovers as kind of like my replacement for Saltburn. I think Saltburn would still definitely be on my top 5 of 2023. Like definitely, especially after this conversation. What a great conversation about it, and it helped enlighten it a lot more for me. But I think for me, Holdovers is very
Whoever's going to be
like
on next year's list, Mike.
well, certainly. And I think that Holdovers is like it just I mentioned it already, but that it was the I think of like my top in terms of like films that I would want to recreate kind of, and I I did enjoy Saltburn so much too, and I feel like it's kind of like it was very boyish like as well in some ways, and so Saltburn
Sure.
or Holdovers gives you kind of like that warm and fuzzy feeling that I was really excited for the holiday season. I think I watched this like I watched Saltburn specifically between like the Christmas and New Year's Eve week or whatever, and it
Yeah.
was like pretty crazy time to watch it then. This is more of like a, I don't know, it feels like a quite a summer movie in other words. But yeah, I just
Sure.
wanted to amend my top 5 list.
Fair enough. Um, I'm going to recommend Titan from 2021 from France. So, folks, if you're someone who kind of is already watching, or let me put it this way: if you watch Saltburn because people really hyped it up as a weird, gross movie, and you watched it and thought, not that shocking,
Mm.
Titan's the movie for you because this is also a
Ooh.
movie that involves strange sex, that involves a character doing some calculating murders and some lying about who they really are. This is a movie that a lot of people know as the movie where a woman gets pregnant and after having sex with a car. And yes, that is what happens, among other crazy things. This is a French body horror movie by Julia Darcano, who did the great cannibalism movie Raw. This is a wild, fun time that is very violent, more violent than I expected. But if you're the person who thought I want something more, this is maybe pretty deep. But I have a jump from Saltburn, but give it a try. I loved it, and I think it's on Hulu right now. And it's not just a dumb car sex murder movie. There's quite a lot that's being said in this. I believe it's truly a beautiful movie, and that sentence will sound insane until you see it. Aaron, do you have anything that you want to promote, like event-wise?
I have the thing to plug.
Oh,
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the, I guess my adventure as an artist has put me kind of in charge of it's helping out it's a very strange piece. It comes out of Burning Man. It's been running for about 20 years, both physically, and now we have a small but growing online presence. So if you're, I don't know, if you want to explore some weird Burning Man art, if you want to check out some art that has a playful way of dealing with religion and our relationship with it. If you've ever thought about talking to God on a phone, you're totally welcome to come check out the Talk to God project. And you can even volunteer for the couple times of the year that we open up calls to the public. So yeah, come find us at talktogodvirtual.com. I think we'll get some information down in the description. And who knows, if you're on the West Coast festival circuit, you might find a very strange phone booth that invites you to come talk to God. And we really encourage you to pick up the phone and see what happens.
It's a fantastic project I've gotten to be involved with, and I hope to do so again. It's not what I expected, but it was fantastic. So I don't know what I expected, but I'm very glad to have participated at one point as a volunteer, and I should call sometime. So
we're actually opening it up next weekend. It's
nice.
yeah, we're going to
Nice.
Saltburn in Miami with the physical phone booth, and the online version will be running concurrent. So yeah, maybe we'll see you there.
I heard about it in the art world, and so to know that you guys are connected is really cool. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
We're currently on our third generation of people trying to make this thing work, so it takes a village.
So cool. Yeah. It takes a village led by Aaron. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for listening. Aaron, thank you once again for coming on. We're always happy to have you on to chat anything and everything.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You are due back to talk in part 2, which is coming out this year.
Yes.
So
you better have
talk to you before then.
You absolutely better have me on there.
Yeah.
You have to read the entire Dune novel before you see that, unfortunately.
I've read the novel, actually.
Yeah.
The only thing I haven't done yet is Jodorowsky's Dune, the documentary. So
yeah. I need to see that too, honestly. Yeah. I just gotta buy it.
I want to see it because I do like the theory that man never actually expected to make the movie, which is why his demands were so insane. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, look up Jodorowsky's Dune. It's quite a story. And there's a documentary about the Chilean director Alejandro Jodorowsky was at one point hired to be the first man to adapt Dune and did not go well before David Lynch's version. But that's a tease for later in the year. Hope to have you on more times.
Yes.
As always, just let us know when you want to watch.
Most definitely.
And folks, we're now on the Grams. We're now on Facebook. So tell your parents after they watch Saltburn to find us on Facebook, Instagram,
and listen to the
Twitter
commentary
and give us a 5-star.
That's right.
If you listen to, that'd be great. Yeah, listen to the episode, but mostly give us the 5-star.
I'll get you my mom's review of the podcast.
That'd be
Your
great.
mom's perfect.
That does remind me, folks, we are also taking submissions for articles on our website. If you have a piece of film criticism you want to post, email us at filmoptimist@gmail.com, and we'll probably get it up there.